think really high impact. So I'm excited to see how this conversation goes. Welcome, Micah. Tell us a little bit about how you arrived at this approach. I'd love to learn.
Thanks, Austin. So the idea of this approach and what we're kind of going to put together in this webinar is a very practical, very actionable framework that literally anyone can take and apply within their own city. So the idea of this is modeled after there's an organization called code.org. They have this thing called the Hour of Code, where you take basically learn to code in a very low stake, non-technical environment, learning with each other. And so the idea of it is, regardless of how comfortable you're at with AI. Now, if you're watching these Wednesday webinars, I'm assuming that you're going to be a pretty proficient user and you're going to be very curious about it, just given our very good audience here. But maybe you're just learning. Maybe you're just joining us for the first time and you're watching this and you're new to AI and you want to do something, want to make an impact in your city. This is a really easy, practical way. You don't have to know a lot about AI. You don't have to know a lot about delivering training. You literally just take this template and run with it in your city. So I've already provided this uh, slide deck to SGR. Um, you're more than welcome to reach out to the folks at SGR to get a copy of the presentation. Happy to share it. Like, this is no proprietary information on my end of things. So feel free to reach out to the folks at SGR if you want to get a copy of the presentation outside of this webinar as well. So that's kind of the idea of it. It's based off code.org and the Hour of Code model, and what I think is a very, very practical and actionable uh, low tech way to teach what can be a pretty complicated subject at times.
Mm, I love that. That's really awesome. I mean, what we're doing at the Alliance for Innovation really is grounded in similar principles, right? Bringing together people from across the organization to learn. So you're not only building skills, but you're building trust and empathy, right? People can take risks when they're have a safe space to learn. So, so for folks joining, buckle your seatbelts, get ready, say what's up in the chat where you're coming from. Before we kick things off, just want to remind folks about the Transforming Local Government Conference in April 20th through 22nd. It's coming up. We've got a really awesome keynote speaker, Nick Kittle, who founded Sustainnovation, and all about the role of culture in creating innovation in local government. And from a servant leader perspective, we'll have Craig Freshley facilitating a live demonstration on, what does it take to bridge differences to move forward, right? So he'll be taking volunteers for a live conversation around the topic of how should local government respond when homeless or unhoused people are living in public spaces amid significant complaints, right? So this is a problem that every local government is facing. There's no clean answers about it. So, how do we move forward together in spaces like that? So that'll be in Dallas. You'll see Micah there and be able to get his autograph, so it's going to be great. All right, Micah, I'll let you take it
Thanks.
away.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, if you're there, please feel free to stop by, say hi. I love talking, meeting other local government aficionados and experts in the field. So I always learn a lot from those conferences. I'm going to share my screen here as we get started, and as you're entering things into the chat. One thing I would love to get from you all too is, at some point in this presentation, some point in the training, you're going to want to use AI for a real world task, right? It could be running a policy, it could be responding to an email, it could be anything like that. Just kind of a very simple real world task. And so I've got some ideas in the back of my head, but if you have any suggestions of what we should put into a chat GPT prompt, into a Google Gemini, Perplexity, what have you, into a prompt, a real world task, maybe something you're working on right now, drop that in the chat. Would love to kind of play around with that and crowdsource that part of our training here today. So like we said, this pattern off of the hour of code, and you can go on your favorite search browser and look up the hour of code and have a bunch of resources and things like that. And it's basically that same exact model applied to AI. And I wish I could remember who exactly I first heard this from. I don't remember where I first, somewhere on LinkedIn, an individual had come up with this idea. It was actually outside of local government, in fact, too, but I had come up with this idea of training AI on an hour of code basis. I wish I could give proper credit. It does not originate from me, but I do think it shows the value of number one, um, engaging with information outside of the maybe the public sector bubble of kind of broadening our horizons and getting information, getting content, and getting ideas outside of just local government. So this particular one came from someone in the more of an tech entrepreneur space. So again, the idea of it is just simply to have a framework designed to help leadership implement AI tools effectively through real world tasks. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, we're not going to look like the guy on the screen, which is a candid photo of me going over my taxes this year. So let me just go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so here's the goals and what we're going to do with these workshop goals and requirements. Again, this is something that you can literally take to anywhere. You have a laptop, will travel kind of training. So you can do this with your team. You can do this across a department. You can even do this with externally too, right? So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be in greater Salt Lake City area doing a training with local city there with their local chambers of commerce. So this is something you can apply to literally any type of organization and any team-based training is what this is. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on a real task in the session. Our goal is for everyone to be able to leave confident enough to teach at least one colleague. So basically, what you learn here today, can you share that with somebody else and show them how to do that, right? We've said this before, all this requires from a technical perspective is just a laptop with any AI tool access. So because of how a lot of our Wi-Fi systems and cellular networks work, this is pretty robust, pretty easy to implement. As long as you have an laptop connection to the internet, access to an AI tool, you should be good to go. And what we're going to do here is have one real work task prepared for implementation. So our goal is not necessarily to teach everything and all things about AI in 1 hour. That would be a pretty robust and very, very, very challenging undertaking. The idea of it simply is to take one real work task, show how it can be implemented, and then go from there. And you can do this. You can even do this on a rather consistent basis on some kind of maybe a monthly op tempo or a bi-weekly op tempo, and then just change what real work task you're doing. Because what we're doing is we're teaching less about the specifics of the task and more about the mindset that goes into using AI and becoming more comfortable, more creative. And I think that's going to be hopefully proven valuable over the course of time. So here's the hour of code structure. Now for our webinar, we're going to go through it somewhat faster than a typical 60 minutes with just because of time constraints here. But I also want to have some time at the end for questions and answers too. So we're going to kind of go through this somewhat fast. So the first idea is that the first 10 minutes, you want to set the frame. After that, the next 10 minutes, you're just showing some of the fit, why AI is a good fit for local government. 20 to 40 minutes, so about 20 minutes from the 20 to 40 minute mark, you're going to spend on really the hands-on part of the tool. And then you're going to, in the next 10 minutes, you're going to do a risks check. You're talking about some of the risks and ethics of AI and what you're seeing there, again, related to that one real task. And then the last 5 minutes is kind of a Q&A, what's next, where we go from here kind of structure. So rather simple structure of how this is going to work. And again, something that's very duplicable across really any organization, any jurisdiction. So first thing is setting the frame. And this is where within local government, you want to establish the mindset of AI. And so some of the key points I think are really important to cover here is understand that AI is a prediction tool, right? It is predicting the next word. I've heard people talk about, an example is the word apple, right? And so in the word apple, you have a lot of different words that can be associated with the word apple, including apple tree, apple fruit, maybe the word a vegetable because fruits and vegetables together, right? And we associate with it. And but the most common, from what I could find in my research, the most common association with the word apple is the word phone because of our Apple iPhones. So based on this prediction pattern and based on what the output or what the model believes that you want to see, that's what it'll start drafting together paragraphs based on the next word prediction models there. So the basic idea of an AI tool and the way it can be used is it's designed to respond in a way that gives you the output it thinks you want to see. And so, for instance, if I were to go on ChatGPT and say, explain to me why local government is the best career field for young students in a young college students, it's going to explain and put things in a way that's going to be quote unquote biased towards local government and why it's a good career field. I could also go in there and say, why is local government not a great career field for college students? And again, it'll respond in a way that's going to say why it's not a great career field for local government. So it's responding to the original prompt, responding to the original query, and responding such in a way that it's trying to figure out what I want it to say. That way, and part of it too is just that way, keep engaging with it, keep interacting with it, and keep using the system. So with that in mind, that's why it's really important to set the frame, understand what this tool is. It's not 100% accurate. It's hardly even any type of accurate, right? So you want to make sure that your prompts are as precise as possible. You want to use precise communication. This is why one of the key skills in our world today, especially in this new AI age, is communication skills. It's speaking clearly, writing clearly, listening, reading comprehension is really important as well too. And that way we can communicate as effectively as possible. Now, with all that said, for those who are maybe new to AI, maybe hesitant about some of the prompts and nervous about that, I would say this is it's not as scary as it sounds. There's a lot that we can do with AI just by basic human interaction. And even if your first prompt isn't perfect, that's okay. We can always move on and iterate with the next prompt and get better and better. And if worse comes to worse, you can also type in, we've done this before in previous webinars too, we can type in a imperfect prompt and then just ask the AI model to revise and to make it more precise, to remove any biases that might be in there or things like that. You can actually have the AI develop your prompts for you. The last thing I would say too, and this is extremely important, probably pretty obvious, but just for the sake of it, I think it's an important thing to touch on is we want to make sure we understand that at the end of the day, wherever the output is, we are responsible for the final results. So if we're producing something and we're taking this, say if we're writing a policy on writing an AI policy, for example, if we're writing an AI policy and we put that into implementation, we're the ones responsible because we're the ones that reviewed it. We're the ones that eventually put that into a policy format and approved it. So we're responsible and accountable for the final results. And that's something that's extremely important to understand and to make sure that we're on the same page. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about is you want to talk about showing the fit, talking about why AI is important for local government. Again, something that I don't think we just spend a whole lot of time here in this particular webinar, because I think all of us probably are very passionate, very excited about the potential of AI. We see a lot of the value, a lot of the benefits. I know a lot of you all are already using AI in some extraordinary and doing some really great things with AI in your local cities. So then that's something here in this particular part of the session. If you're training this or teaching this, this is where you could talk about some of those things that you're using, right? I don't remember if I talked about this last time in our February webinar, but just for the sake of example, I love what I heard from folks that were in, I think it was out in Eastern Pennsylvania, and an individual is using Google Gemini to walk him through how to take a abandoned shopping center and convert that into a mixed use development. So there's some really cool things happening there. Even just some of the other stuff I've heard too, with people using AI to one of them used AI to diagnose a rare illness with the newborn that they had, and the doctors were confused, couldn't figure it out. they put this stuff into ChatGPT and then was able to diagnose that. And then most importantly, they worked with the doctors and medical professionals to evaluate that solution, but it ended up being the right solution for and diagnosing the illness. So that's a pretty cool example too, like literally saving lives, which is pretty wild to think of that in our day and age today. So just talk about something you're doing, right? I've heard everything from people using AI to redecorate a house, to meal prep, to writing a policy, to drafting or looking at budget forecasts. So whatever you're passionate about, whatever you see that one ordinary and real task to illustrate the practical utility, immediate value, that's what we're going to want to focus on in this part of the training session, is just to show the fit and show the fit from a place of authenticity. I think is the most important too. There's a lot of things. The one thing I'd say, there's a lot of different stories, a lot of different things that are on the internets that you can go and find interesting use cases. You can find interesting stories there. It's always a great way to kind of see what other people are doing. I think of stuff like the Gov AI Coalition is doing some really great work on that. I know the Johns Hopkins has a great Bloomberg Center. I think it's called like right now, but maybe not the Gov AI Coalition. That's San Jose, but there's one like that from Hopkins as well too. So a lot of great use cases, a lot of great stories out there. The one thing I would say, those are great ways to kind of figure out what other people are doing and maybe you try that on your own too. The one thing I would say in a session like this, focus on what you are comfortable doing. Focus on what you've done, what your experiences are. That way you can speak to that more authoritatively. Feel free to reference other things and kind of show and maybe prime the pump of ideas from externally. But if I'm talking about the fit and the real ordinary and real task, illustrate practical utility and immediate value, I'm going to talk to what I'm using it personally. So for instance, in this one, if I was training this particular one, I would talk about my recent interactions with ChatGPT, where I'm going through and looking up information on how city insurance rates are calculated, right? How does that fit in together? What does that look like? How does an EMOD fit into that? And those types of things. So that's something I've been working recently, or even looking at we're in the middle of our prep for our budget season. So using AI to evaluate and better understand some of the more technical budget requests that we get, particularly from, say the fire department or from a police department, to better understand what the actual request is, and we can go beyond just the the name brand names or the technical names. Help me understand this as a deputy city manager who's never actually been a firefighter. How do I explain this? What does this mean? And things like that. Okay, so the next phase is going to be that hands-on phase. This is the active participation phase where team members try one real task using the structured prompts to build confidence. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to kind of work through this together. I'm going to open up my Zoom here and see if there's anything in the chat here. And I do see a question here, but if anyone has any ideas or any suggestions on what we should put into ChatGPT, feel free to enter that into the chat at this time if you want to. So for this, if you can follow along doing this too as well. So if you have a laptop out and you have a second screen or something like that, or you want to follow along with this, feel free to do so. What we're going to do here is we're going to open up ChatGPT and we're going to put a prompt in and kind of see what happens. Again, we've done a lot of this stuff before, so some of the stuff might be pretty old to us, or we've done stuff like that before. But again, for now, what we want to do is we want to experiment with this and see what happens, and imagine us training this information to our team members. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to say, please explain what goes into a great local government AI policy. And you'll notice here what I'm doing first is we could obviously go in here, we could say, please write a local government AI policy. We could do stuff like that, right? But what I want to do is I want to show why the value of AI is not simply just to go from nothing to something. I want to show why it's important to kind of scale that, learn first, develop the outline, and then finally from there, develop the policy. So here we go. We'll explain what goes into a great local government AI policy. go through and it'll provide us with the different things here. So just quickly, I'll kind of review this. So the first element is clear purpose and scope. The second component is governance and oversight. So the policy should identify who has authority to approve AI use. Another core element is risk classification. The policy should also address data protection and privacy. Related component is human oversight and decision authority. We talked about that human oversight in the beginning. Policies often require a human in the loop for decisions affecting residents, employees, or legal compliance. You may have heard before in previous webinars, we talk extensively about having the right human in the loop as well. So it's not just enough to have a random human in the loop. A great example of this is if you're using AI to maybe do some translation work, right? So maybe you're translating something from English into Spanish. You're going to want to make sure that the human that's reviewing the output actually speaks Spanish, and preferably maybe even a native Spanish speaker. So that way you can see whether or not it's actually being accurate. And the same thing applies if you're evaluating maybe a fire department budget request and you want to say, what does this mean, right? You want to make sure you're not just taking the AI's word for it. Having those conversations with the subject matter experts is really important. So you might even want to say, instead of just human in the loop, you might want to say subject matter expert in the loop. That way they actually understand what the real legal compliance, the real effects, the real decisions that can be made, the operational impacts. Another piece is transparency and documentation. The city should be able to explain what the system does and how it is used. Many jurisdictions maintain an internal inventory of AI tools and publish a public register of significant AI systems. Strong policy also includes vendor and procurement requirements. Other overlooked components is workforce guiding and guidance and training. Thankfully, we have SGR and AFI to help us out with that a lot too. So, if quick plug for them, that if you're looking for workforce guidance and AI training, please reach out to AFI and SGR. I think they do some really incredible work over there. So you're not alone in your workforce guidance and training journey. We want to, folks want to help you out and give you the best leg forward there. The other thing too is you want to address monitoring and auditing. And then finally, the risk of AI non-use. So the idea here is that residents are increasingly using AI search tools to find information about city services. If city data is inaccessible, outdated, or poorly structured, AI systems will generate inaccurate answers about the city. Policy should encourage publishing structured, up-to-date public information so that AI systems interacting with government data produce accurate results. So here it gives us some great things here. We can do here is we can say, please review and provide more comprehensive details. So he's going to go through, and you can do this a number of different times, right? You want to keep doing this until you really feel like you have a great understanding of what this information is, of what this is. So it's going to go through and provide even more details here. I can provide some more comprehensive things here. And when it's all done, we can go a step further from here, because maybe we're thinking, you know what, this is all good, but I'm curious as to how much of this is actual, things that the AI is making up, how much of it might be we can source and maybe find examples of this in the real world. So we can say, please review once again and provide sourcing for your claims. I'm going to say sources for your claims. And this is where we're going to start seeing some of the value and the power of AI. So now we're going to do things, the components described are not arbitrary. They are largely derived from international federal frameworks such as the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, OECD AI Principles, and emergent government AI governance practices. So here we can see this is an article from FAE, AI Government Frameworks for Compliance and Growth, and one from Proofpoint. Here's one from AIGN. What is the excuse me, what is an AI governance framework? On risk oversight and classification, here's one from the NIST, which is a pretty repeatable source there. One from Netrix Global, one from AI 21, one from OECD, as well as, oh, click that too quick there. One from OECD, as well as IBM. And you can see you're going through and finding all this great information here. So a lot of great examples there. So now what we can do, we can say, okay, I like these different things. Please go ahead and give me the top 5 things that must be in a local government AI policy for a municipality in Texas with a population around, let's just say 50,000 residents and about, I'm just going to estimate 250 employees. I'm going to change this to be a full service municipality. So it's going to go through and see, okay, here's the top 5 things it thinks it should have. Clear governance and accountability structure, risk-based classifications of AI uses, data protection and information security rules, human oversight and decision authority, transparency, inventory, and monitoring. If you want, I can show you something very useful for your context, the 3 biggest mistakes cities make when writing AI policies. So you can keep going through it. It's going to keep, you can keep iterating, keep going through over and over and over again. So you can, but what I'm showing you too is the idea also that when you're using AI, we can often tend to take AI and kind of fast track some of the real thinking and real work that goes into producing something because of how quickly it can produce something. But what I find is that when you spend a lot of the time at the beginning, like we're doing here, we haven't even wrote an AI policy yet. We haven't done this part yet. So, but when you're spending the time learning about it, revising, kind of narrowing down what's my reason why, and things like that, you get some really great value with it. Another good example of this too, if you're doing like so basically if you have any type of project, whatever you're doing or anything like that, you want to identify what are my reasons for doing this to begin with, and then having AI kind of help you draft that and narrow down what it is you're trying to do. So before we go into it, let's try this out here. I'm curious what ChatGPT thinks are the 3 biggest mistakes cities make when writing AI policies. So here's the 3 biggest mistakes. First is trying to ban or tightly restrict AI use instead of governing it. So some cities initially responded to generative AI by prohibiting tools. The problem is that bans rarely work in practice. It often creates shadow AI where staff use tools unofficially without any oversight. Second major mistake is writing overly complex policies that staff cannot realistically follow. And the third major mistake is focusing only on internal staff use while ignoring AI vendor systems as well. So with this all in mind, let's now go into actually drafting the AI policy. And we'll say, okay, now with all of this conversation in mind, let's draft a outline for the AI policy for the city. So the goal of the outline is to keep the policy concise but comprehensive, typically resulting in a document around 8 to 12 pages once written. To me, that seems a little long in length from my personal perspective, but maybe for anyone else that might be perfectly fine and understandable. Other point of it too is as you're doing something like this too, this is where that subject matter expert in the loop is going to become really, really important. We've talked about this before again in previous webinars, where if you're the one developing an AI policy or doing something like this, if I'm doing this, and what we did this in our city here, we we included our IT director. We had a robust conversation with the IT director. We had a robust conversation with our HR team as well too, to make sure we had the right people in the loop. We didn't just wholly rely on ChatGPT or an AI tool to write the policy for us. We involved the right people at the table and the right stakeholders to make sure it was done the right way. So here's a purpose and intent, scope and applicability, definitions, guiding principles, oversight, AI risk classification framework, so on and so forth, data protection, privacy, all that fun stuff right here. So now we can do is we can say, open this in Canvas so we can better edit and start putting the content into the outline. And this is where you're opening in the Canvas system here for better editing. This is one of my favorite tools in ChatGPT. Is this right here? We can take this and edit this and see what's going on here. So once this is all loaded up, we can click edit. And now, as it's going through, we can edit. We've seen this before. We can edit directly into here. So we're going to go through. It's going to keep going. Once this is all said and done, we'll show you a couple things just to quickly review. We're not going to edit this entire document. What I would do in this situation is I would edit this piece by piece by piece, kind of section at a time. That way we don't lose everything. We're kind of going to do it one step at a time. So for here, we're just going to take the scope of applicability and say, please put this into narrative form and fill in the details. And while I'm doing that, I saw a couple things pop up here. I don't want to ignore anyone here. So give me 1 second to see what if anything, people came in here. So here's a scope and applicability. Pretty cool. That's all set and good there, right? So as we finish out, so this is hopefully to show in about 20 minutes. We did less than 20 minutes for the sake of time. We went through, took a real world example and applied that directly to AI, walked through how to do it. And again, what you'll notice here in this example, and this is pretty universal when using any type of AI tool, is when we do the hard work up front, I'm going to have less iteration at the output. Now, in something like this, I'm probably still going to revise. I'm still going to do some editing, still going to do some stuff like that. But at least now that the ChatGPT model has a very robust understanding of what I want, and maybe just as importantly, I have a really good framework and understanding of how the AI model is going to respond to me when I develop this municipal AI policy. Last but not least, because we do want to focus on developing and collaborating with one another, I'm going to stop this real quick here. Maybe refresh this page 1 quick second here. We can take this final thing right here and we can say, okay, let's put all of this into an email body that I can send to my colleague, Mike Maury, for review. His email is, I'm going to put my email in it for now. This is not his email, obviously, but for the sake of this, I'll say his email is my email. So it's going to see here, kind of draft this whole thing together. And this is pretty cool within ChatGPT. They recently did now is you can actually send emails directly into from this thing. So once it's all done, it's going to draft a pretty long email, and we can click here, open email. You can open it in Outlook, so you can open it that way, or you can open it just in your default email app. So here you go. Here's the AI policy right here, and we could send this out to our buddy Mike. And there it is. Now the email is sent. or you can click over here and I can open up my email and it would be right there within the email. So let me go back over here. I'm going to continue uh, presenting here. You know, we've had the hands-on participation. Hopefully that shows, number one, how to take a really simple use case, you know, drafting a policy. We talk about AI policies, but literally any policy you have, any type of document, you can use the same thing, a type of idea, framework, same idea. The key points here are you want to make sure that you are doing a lot of your legwork up front. That way you understand how to best communicate with the AI system what you want, and you have an understanding of how the AI system is going to interact, what it's thinking, how it's going to respond to your prompt before you develop the actual policy. So we did that first. We had that comprehensive detail. We did an outline, which I think is still, you know, for as great as AI is and as wonderful as a writing tool it can be, there's still a reason why we have, you know, different structured and proven templates for writing, right? There's a reason why you would teach college students and high schoolers to write an outline first. That's because you write better things when there's an outline. So the same thing applies here with AI. Having it create an outline first really helps out. And then last but not least, we involved our subject matter experts, right? So we sent an email to our colleague Mike to say, hey, Mike, how do we, you know, we want to get your input on this, want to get your feedback because we don't want to rely just on AI for the information. And now with that tool and feature there within ChatGPT, we were able to do that right then. We were able to use our AI tool to actually send an email out with our system there. So just pretty cool. Okay, so after the hands-on portion is done, so this is the active participation phase. And really what we would do in this situation as well too, as we're using this, is we would want to get feedback from the participants. What are they seeing? What are the reasons why their interaction with ChatGPT might be a little different? So for instance, on one of the portions we had on there was talking about the risk of not using AI. That's something that I was just recently, in fact, just yesterday, talking with ChatGPT about some of the risk of not using AI in response to an email inquiry I had that day. So you may or may not have that type of output from AI. Probably learned that from our interaction. Said, hey, I know that when Micah types into ChatGPT talking about AI risk, something he's thinking about is the risk of not using AI. Let me put that in there because I think he's going to like that. You're going to have a different output. So understanding why that is, understanding what that means, understanding how to evaluate, how to weigh that appropriately will be important as well too. So like for instance, in that framework, I'm not evaluating, I'm going to evaluate some of the stuff that comes from the NIST AI framework at a higher level than I would with than my previous just thoughts on AI. So here's the hands-on training thing. The second thing we're gonna do, so kind of one of the last steps here is we're gonna do about 10 minutes of a risk check. So one thing you'll notice here, so we did this a little bit as we were going along. So for instance, I didn't put in Mike's email address into the system. I put in my email address, right? I don't care if people know my email address, but I will make sure to protect individual privacy there. And so I don't want to just put in anyone random person's email address without them knowing, unless it's like a publicly available or a government, you know, what email address that everyone knows. You can go on the city website and find, you know, you can go to the city website and find my maricopa-az.gov email address. So there's no secrets. You can find me there, right? So, but you want to be sensitive to that, right? You don't want to be sensitive to the data you're uploading and putting into tools. In this particular example, there wasn't a whole lot of risk of sensitive data being put in, so that was pretty easy. We also want to make sure that we weren't assuming the accuracy of the generated output. We were reviewing it, we were checking it, right? So for instance, again, on the example of the AI, the risk of not using AI, we didn't weigh that at the same degree as, say, our NIST framework capabilities or NIST framework type of AI governance. So that's also important too. You don't want to assume the accuracy of the generated output. Something too to think about as well when we're talking about the AI accuracy is you might have something be 99% accurate, but that 1% just ruins the whole bunch of it. So you want to make sure you're able to kind of see, you know, in totality, what's accurate, what's not accurate, how to and to maybe even surgically decipher what you want to keep and what you need to get rid of, what you need to refine from there. And finally, this is the most important thing: is you must own the output and take full responsibility. So if I was putting this policy together, if we're putting something together with AI, we're the ones that are ultimately responsible. So accountability and responsibility still remain foremost and forefront for really any work in local government. Finally, what's next? So this is the final stage here, and we'll transition. I saw some questions in the Q&A, so we'll kind of take some of your questions. If anything else, any other questions you have, feel free to drop them into the chat. Let us know. We'd love to answer your questions as best as possible. So what happens next is the idea for this is, okay, who do you teach next? You're going from transitioning from learning and just looking at AI as a cool feature, a cool tool. You want to think of this more than just here's how to use a new software, to organizational impact. So we can look at identifying time-saving opportunities and plan your first training session with your team. I love this framework that someone at in fact, she was at the Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania at the Minor Center over there. And what she says when she was training other local governments how to use AI in her role there, she would go and say, "Hey, can I show you how to save? Would you like to save 5 minutes of your day, or would you like to save an hour of your day?" I think is what she said. So I think she said, would you like to save an hour of your day? And then she would use that as a framework to show them how to use AI, which I thought was super cool. Very, it isn't, who doesn't want to save a couple hours of their day? Who doesn't want to try that out? And it was a way for her to kind of get in the door and show people how to use AI, show people what she was working on, and provide some real value back to the governments that were reaching out and trying to figure out how to be more efficient, more productive with their world there. So with that in mind, again, if you want a copy of this presentation, please feel free to reach out to the folks at SGR. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to share that with you all. We've got some questions here in the chat, Hassan. I'm pulling it up here. So I'll start with Wendy's question. What are some workflow examples that can be used to explain code enforcement complaint processes to the public? Ultimately, we'll create a visual for the website and staff coordination and communications, and we'll use it to inform SOPs. We do have code, but the code does not inform the procedures, just the last straw abatement. So this is a great question. I think it's a fairly robust and fairly, I think it's something that a lot of cities and communities are going to be wrestling with. Hassan, anything from your perspective on this particular question at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things. One is that your example with the narrative kind of translation was helpful. I mean, even in Wendy's words, like they found it was really helpful. That being said, I think, when it comes to, yeah, information, making it visual, that's really important, right?
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, I don't the
Yeah,
public. Yeah, I think creating with them would be kind of my, gut response, right? Is not just the inform, tell. It's like, okay, what do you think it should be? It gets the noggin working.
yeah. I think it's pretty, there's a couple of things here. Is number one, AI can't necessarily replace good governance infrastructure. So beyond just AI governance in general. So this might be something where you want to look at what other cities of similar jurisdiction, of similar, maybe in your state, what they're doing first. Learn from your peers. The plagiarism is not a thing in local government, so plagiarize the heck out of other code enforcement SOPs, what they're using. Look at your city code, your code too. It might be a matter of maybe your code is not robust enough, and there's only so much AI can do to help that out. That might be more of a code and SOP format than necessarily an AI thing. So you can do that. You can use your AI to better explain the code. You can use AI maybe to identify some of those gaps within your code enforcement environment, the broader environment, from SOP, from notification to process to handle that notification all the way through abatement, kind of thinking of the life cycle of your code enforcement process. You're going to find gaps in there and see, okay, which of this is a Is this a ordinance gap? Is this a resolution gap? Is this a department SOP gap? Is it a gap into how the notification and response frameworks work? So having that whole framework, the life cycle of everything can be pretty important there. Another question we had from someone is, how do we deal with AI providing copyright information? Are we responsible to know where the information is coming from? Hassan, your thoughts on this? I know you do a lot of work with ethical AI and things like that. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a phase of continuous learning. I think it takes a lot of bandwidth to know where every single source comes from. Yet I still think, we are responsible for what we put in, right? And so
Mhm.
it might help us find sources faster. AI might help us find sources faster, but we still are responsible for the choices we make. So I don't know about ways of dealing with that more effectively, but I would definitely, I think that we're responsible.
Yeah, I would say too. I think we're responsible, like you said, for the output. I don't know to what degree we're responsible for there's been conversations about ChatGPT, infringing on people's copyright or things like that. So if we're using ChatGPT, does that mean that we're culpable or things like that? I've not seen that at all, and I would be surprised if any court ruled that way. I think they're going to probably find that the model itself is culpable, not the end users. That's typically how that works out. But I do think it's important for us to understand where the information is coming from. That way, we have a good, robust understanding of the accuracy and the reliability of the data being presented to us. Um, and again, like a lot of what we're doing in local government, we don't copyright our stuff in local government. This is why it's a great use case for AI. Our budgets aren't copywritten. Anyone can look at it, anyone can use it. And so using that publicly available data, you can do so much with it. With census data, with ACS data, with government data, there's a lot out there that we can do. And so that's a great way to start, is just by using publicly available government data.
Micah, do you have any thoughts on like as someone who's working in local government, is there any sort of responsibility for the local government using copywritten information and kind of like putting it out there for the public? Is that make the organization responsible for anything, or am I playing
That's a
something too
that's a
far?
great question, Hasan. I would say I'm not a lawyer, don't even play one on TV. So I would defer that to my legal experts. But if anyone out there is a legal expert or is an attorney, write me. I would love to hear your thoughts on that particular question. It's a really relevant question. I would love to hear, I don't I yeah, I would be just guessing, and you don't want me to guess on a question like that. I think it's an important question.
Yeah, it seems like it comes down like kind of reminds of like the public records requests people like if they if they really want to know and like it could be something that creates a lot of disruption if someone really wanted to chase you down for it.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I
if there
think
are
those are all our questions. Up, do we have any more? I'll
I
make
think there's
sure.
one
I think those.
more does ChatGPT only produce narrative word-based output or can it also create flowcharts or other imagery?
Yes, it can create flowcharts, other imagery. So absolutely, it can create all types of visualizations and charts. It can even, edit images itself too. So you can do all kinds of stuff within ChatGPT there. And if you want to do like flow charts and things like that, or build visualizations, to me the best one to use is Gemini. I think they do a really, really great job at visualization. So try out Gemini for that data visualization piece of things.
Awesome. Well, think those are all the questions. So thank you so much, Micah, for walking us through this repeatable framework. I think it's great to get people together, work on something very tangible, especially kind of, one of the outcomes being, can you train one of your colleagues on that, right? I think that is uh, really compelling and useful. So hopefully, thank you to the audience, participants. Hope you found this useful. I love the engagement today. We'll send over the template in the thank you email. Thank you, Lisa, for all of your work. They wouldn't be getting the templates if it weren't for you and making everything happen. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and